As promised, here comes the third and last video out of 3. The goal of this series of videos was to talk and analyze physical demands of karate. In the first video, I have been talking about mechanics of body in karate, how our body acts during Kumite and Kata. Second video was all about energy demand, what is happening with our body during karate, how our body works, where do we get our energy from, and what we need to be able to sustain work at higher intensity for prolonged time. If you missed first 2 episodes, I would really suggest you to go check them out before you watch this one. It's all about basic principles which you should know if you're a trainer or someone practicing karate. You might benefit a lot from mentioned knowledge. If your movement basics are not there, you have a hell lot of options to improve your performance just with working on your basics and leaving performance part for later when you establish proper mechanics of your body. In the last video, I want to speak about kinematic demands in karate. Or let's just say I will speak about strength training in karate. As many times said, this is my opinion based on my experiences and researches that have been done in the last years. Karate Kumite is a highly dynamic sport that affords high levels of muscle power for punching and kicking. In order to effectively score according to the official karate rules. Therefore, rapid active and reactive full body movements are needed to be successful during competition. As already said in the first videos, 84% of all actions last up to 2 seconds. What does this tell me? Well, karate is highly dependent on speed and power. On average, it takes only 0.1 seconds to 0.15 seconds to finish attack. And on average, it takes 0.65 seconds to respond on that attack. Based on this, we can conclude we need to be able to produce high levels of muscular strength and power. It is noteworthy that karate kumite performance relies more on high rate than low movement velocities. Therefore, it appears justified to consider including low load, high velocity resistant training exercises to specifically train this section of the force velocity curve. To do so, ballistic and plyometric exercises seem to be the most effective training methods. Also, traditional resistance and weightlifting training load at low load can be considered appropriate alternatives for karate kumite athletes. These power training methods may contribute to improve the neural drive, rate of neural activation, and intermuscular coordination of karate kumite athletes. First thing first, there's multiple ways you can use to develop strength and power, but all of them have common things, which allow us to connect them together into bigger picture. If we start with gross classification, we can mention 2 groups. One is more common for strength development and second is more common for power development. Strength training movement can be classified as grinding, strength biased methods, and ballistic methods, power biased methods. Further on, we can classify grinding into action-based movements and segment-based exercises. Ballistic exercises can be further classified into Olympic lifts, jumping, throwing, sprinting, and fast grinding. This is gross classification, which can be used when planning our training. Since I believe there's plenty of terms which are probably new to you, I will give my best to explain them to you. I strongly believe in why behind programs and not just cooking recipes. Strength is the ability to apply force to either overcome resistances to movement or resist unwanted movement. Maximal strength is the ability to apply maximal levels of force or strength irrespective of time constraints. Power is the rate of performing work, the ability to apply force with speed. Plyometric training involves the usage of jumps, hops, bounds, and/or skips, and should not be confused with ballistic training. This form of training is governed by the stretch shortening cycle, otherwise known as the reversible action of muscles. Plyometric activities can be separated into 2 categories depending upon the duration of the ground contact time. First, fast plyometric movements, less than 250 milliseconds, and second, slow plyometric activities, more than 251 milliseconds. The stretch shortening cycle refers to the pre-stretch or counter-movement action that is commonly observed during typical human movements such as jumping. This pre-stretch allows the athlete to produce more force and more quicker. The term ballistic refers to a method of training where the athlete's body or an external object is explosively projected into a flight pace and can therefore include exercises such as jumps, throws, or strikes. Unlike traditional lifting techniques, where heavy loads are used to improve neuromuscular power through improved force production, with ballistic training, the load is manipulated in order to train the velocity end of the spectrum. Although similar, ballistic training should not be confused with plyometrics, which encompass an eccentric pre-stretching, followed a rapid rebound, thereby benefiting from the power amplifying effect of the muscle tendon unit known as the stretch shortening cycle. The rate of force development is a measure of explosive strength, or simply how fast an athlete can develop force. Athletes with higher rates of force development have been shown to perform better during numerous physical performance tests. Last but not least, force-velocity curve is simply a relationship between force and velocity and can therefore be displayed on XY graph. The horizontal axis indicates velocity. For example, this might represent muscle contraction velocity or velocity of movement, whilst the vertical axis indicates force. For example, this might represent muscle contractile force or the amount of ground reaction force produced. I believe this is future individual training, especially in the world of speed and power, as it is in the martial art world. I hope the equipment needed to measure force and velocity will soon be affordable for everyone to use it on trainings. Now, when we know some basic terms, we can observe motion and demands during karate. There is a high need for overcoming initial inertia. Our main goal when standing still is to explode to our opponent. We need to produce high amounts of force as fast as possible. We can refer that to the rate of force development. We can make connections between sprint start and karate attack. In both cases, it's about accelerating from zero to fast. In this case, we need to have developed strength speed to be successful in accelerating really fast. In sprinting, strength speed is really important in the first 10 meters when accelerating. In our case, there is no need to accelerate for 10 meters because we usually do 1 or 2 steps when attacking. That's why we need to emphasize importance of maximal strength and power production. If we want to explain max strength, speed, and power, we can look at force velocity profile. What's all about? Well, it's about relationship between strength and velocity. Most simplified, more force that we produce, longer it will last. Faster we want to be, less force will be produced. Since it cannot be as simple as this, in between max strength and max velocity, we have some other aspects we can work on based on demands of our sport. So we said we need to have good max strength and power. We can look at the percentage of 1 rep max we need plus speed which is required at the individual skill. So let's say we want to develop max speed. We will use 95% or more of our max lift, and we will target speed of lift between 0.15 to 0.35 meters on second. So if my maximum squat is 100 kilos for 1 rep, I will take 95 kilos and I will want to squat it at 0.15 meters per second. Same goes as with all others in the force velocity curve. I've heard a lot of times, but won't I be slow if I lift weights? Well, guess what? You have to lift weights if you want to be fast. Don't do it as bodybuilders do, because you want to be strong and fast. To be clear, what they do is okay, but not for someone who is an athlete and is dependent upon speed and power. There is always some bouncing at Kumite. When we jump up and down, our muscles are elongating and then shortening. They are storing force in their tendons, which makes it easier for us to move. Do you see where I'm heading? If you remember at the beginning, I was mentioning stretch shortening cycle and plyometric. Well, this is it. When you're bouncing or attacking and you do some counter movement prior to your action, the stretch shortening cycle is involved. There is a big point in training plyometrics in martial arts. Plyometrics will go in the speed part of force velocity curve. So what I will actually do with plyometric and why would I even train plyometrics? As already said, plyometric training involves the usage of jumps, hops, bounds, and or skips, etc. As the stretch shortening cycle exists in all forms of human motion, from changing direction, jumping, and even sprinting, it becomes obvious that all of these movements can be deemed as plyometric activities. As all of these movements are classified as plyometric movements, activities, exercises, its importance in sport suddenly becomes transparent. With the growing interest in plyometric training, many researchers have attempted to then identify the potency of this training modality for improving athletic performance. To date, plyometric training has been shown to improve the following physical qualities in both youth and adult population, such as strength, speed, power, change of direction speed, balance, jumping, throwing, kicking, bone density. Why will all those skills be improved if I will train plyometrics? Well, there are some stuff that plyometrics affect. Improve storage and utilization of elastic strain energy. Increased active muscle working range. Enhance involuntary nervous reflexes. Enhance length tension characteristics. Increase muscular reactivity. Enhance motor coordination. I believe you found your why would I now want to plyometric as a part of my training. I guess there's a plenty of people who don't own weights at home to train or don't want to go to the fitness because of zero reasons. But each and everyone has a chance to do jumps, bounds, sprints, etc. and work on plyometrics. I believe you would want to know which muscles to target when training all of this. When we are starting, we need good hip extensors, such as glutes and hamstrings. When we kick, there is need for good knee extensors. There is also some data that competitors who were better ranked had better knee flexors. Results of this study showed a higher level of antagonist knee flexors activation during my getting in the elite compared to the amateur group. According to the same authors, such an activation is mainly adapted to better control the kicking leg. Moving up to our upper body, we can observe similar movement actions. We can use similar training principles as with our lower body training. At this moment, I want to mention training with elastic bands. Elastic bands are quite popular nowadays. They are cheap and we can use them almost everywhere. But the question here is, are they really useful to train karate? By my opinion, we can use them if training with the bar in fitness as a tool to hit different parts of force velocity curve. But using them at trainings of karate might be a bit contradictory. At karate, we don't need to be fast or strongest at the finish, but we need to be able to accelerate at the beginning, so we need to be strong at the start, not at the end. Therefore, I believe there are more efficient ways to train your kicks and punches. One of my favorite ways to train upper body are medicine balls. Medicine ball training is ballistic training. As mentioned earlier, ballistic training refers to a method of training where the athlete's body or an external object is explosively projected in a flight phase. We can find medicine balls very useful because they provide biggest resistance at the start where we need to overcome inertia. My advice to you, buy some medicine balls or train with something that you can throw. There is no need to have medicine balls as heavy as 20 kilos or more. You can have set of medicine balls from 2 kilos up to 8 kilos, and it will be more than enough. Oftentimes I'm asked, will I get bulky and slow if I start with weight training? Well, you have to know that training for performance in sport is not the same as training for bodybuilding. I hope you already found this in the first part of this presentation. Our main goal is to train our central nervous system and muscle tendon complex, which needs to be able to produce and resist high forces from inside of the body and outside of the body. Therefore, no, you don't need to be afraid to get bulky and slow when training with weights. But, as always, there is but. You need to train for your sport, not for your physical appearance. There is one way of training I really fancy. Isometric training is probably the most underrated way of training. We need zero to little equipment to train isometrics. There's a big part in kata. What are my suggestions to you to step up your physical performance? Don't train only karate if you want to get better. Karate by itself can provide stimulus big enough for your muscles and central nervous system to develop into more sufficient one. Don't train only with bands. They have their place and time in your training, but definitely are not the only or most important tool in physical training for sport. Don't be afraid to step into the weight room and lift. Lifting heavy is not dangerous. Not lifting heavy is dangerous in the world of professional sport. We are not talking about size and good looking body. We are talking about health of our body and performance. Too often I see or hear, go hard or go home. No pain, no gain. Well, let me tell you, this is not the way to go if you want to succeed and do something for a long time. Train smart, not hard. This doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you know what to do and you're not doing something just because you've seen someone doing it and he or she may won few times more than you did. So, again, that's how I see connection between strength training and karate. Again, it was maybe said around 10% of everything happening during karate. I really hope you learned something new, something you can use in your training to step up your game. This is the last video in my series of different physical demands in karate. I really hope you have learned something new, and you're already using it in your training while you're preparing for your next competition. If you missed my first two videos, I really suggest you to go check them out. They are not long and you can take few things out which will help you develop into a better fighter. I will put links into the description of this video. If you don't want to miss next videos in future, subscribe to my channel. Once again, I would recommend you to check part 1 of Analyzing Karate, where I talk about biomechanical demands and optimizing your movement for enhancing your performance, and second video where I talk about energy demands in karate. Once again, link will be put in description of this video. As already said in the first two videos, I am planning to put out online program which you can do at your home. Program will be oriented toward every part I have been talking about, starting with basics, progression toward improving our skills and physical demands. You can contact me in my private message or send me a message to my mail prima.h.performance@gmail.com. Also, if you're interested working individually with me, please contact me. If you have any questions, you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, or you can write me on email. You can see my mail and Instagram account in the description of. As already said in the first two videos, I am planning to put out online program which you can do at your home. Program will be oriented toward every part I have been talking about, starting with basics, progression toward improving our skills and physical demands. You can contact me in my private message or send me a message to my mail prima.h.performance@gmail.com. Also, if you're interested working individually with me, please contact me. If you have any questions, you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, or you can write me on email. You can see my mail and Instagram account in the description of this video.